Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Scott Wurtzbacher, and today I am thrilled to share the story of a true fairy tale adventure. Recently, I traveled to the Alps with my wife, Maria, and a few close friends to trek the Tour du Mont Blanc. This epic journey spans 100 miles. It climbs over 30,000 feet in elevation, and it winds through snow-capped peaks and lush green valleys filled with wildflowers, crossing 3 beautiful countries along the way. Joining Maria and me on this adventure and here with us today are Paul and Maria Martino. You may remember Paul from episode 33, where he shared his incredible story of completing marathons in all 50 U.S. states. That episode brought us together and eventually led to planning this trip. 2025 has been a milestone year for both of our families, and the Tour du Mont Blanc felt like the perfect way to celebrate. I've had past guests who have been on this iconic trail, including Cassandra and David Heredic, Tammy Fandre and Anita Phillips, who last year completed the legendary UTMB Ultramarathon. Their stories were incredibly inspiring and gave me the nudge I needed to experience the trail for myself. As with any adventure, there's no substitute for living it firsthand. For us, it was absolutely magical, and the four of us are so excited to have our reunion tonight and share this incredible story with you guys today. Paul, Maria, welcome to the campfire.
Let's go.
Oh man, we had so much fun. And for us, I mean, this is just so exciting. It's a reunion right now. And this is kind of our first chance to really get back after thinking about everything that happened and reflecting. And so, you know, as much as this is for listeners, I think this is for us to just reflect and remember what we got to do together. So to bring our listeners into this, Paul, I want to start with you. Can you talk about what the Tour du Mont Blanc is for people that aren't already familiar with it?
Yeah, sure. And you kind of hit some of the highlights in your introduction, but Tour du Mont Blanc is an iconic hiking trail that thousands of people do every year from all over the world. And as we get into our talk, you'll hear about all the people we met from all over the world and all over the U.S. On this trail. So it's an iconic trail. It starts in, official start is in Les Houches, France, and you head south, and then you eventually get into Italy, and then you continue climbing over the Alps, up and down, major ascents and descents. You get into Switzerland, and you loop back to Chamonix and Les Houches, France. But the Tour du Mont Blanc, it wraps around Mont Blanc, which is the highest mountain in Western Europe. And so people travel from all over the world to do this amazing hike because, like you said in your intro, there's just the views, the Alps, the flowers, the rivers, the waterfalls, the wildlife. It's just amazing. But I just want to add, the most amazing thing about the trip is the people we met along the way and the experience we had with each other along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And
the food in Italy.
the food all the way around was just epic. So, you know, this has been super fun. I just want to touch on the power of this podcast and the community. Cause like Paul, you know, we live very close together. Or very close proximity to each other. Yeah. And, but yet it wasn't really until we did the podcast, Your 50 Marathons podcast, where we kind of sparked like a deeper connection, became closer friends. And then, you know, hence like starting to have conversations about this. So, you know, I just, you know, listening to other people's stories of adventure, it always kind of fills me up. And I'm just like, this trip like wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for like conversations between people about adventures. And I thank you for coming on here. And I'm so excited for this friendship that we've been able to build. And it's just so awesome. So Maria, I want to go to you guys before we kind of dive into the adventure that we took together. You know, Scott and Paul had this conversation and we came up with this idea for this, big milestone year to do this thing called the Tour du Mont Blanc. Maria Martino, I want to start with you. What did you think you were getting yourself into?
So I knew it was going to be hard because when he presented it to me, I was like, I don't know if I can do that. But as we hiked and we trained, I thought, yes, I can definitely do this. And in my head, I thought, each day we'll finish around 2 or 3. We'll roll into a town. We'll maybe get in the hot tub. We'll have a nice meal. We'll take a nap. We'll get up and have some breakfast and do it all again. And it really was not like that. I mean, we got into the town sometimes, 45 minutes before dinner was being served. There was barely time for a shower. And then you definitely had to get up early because breakfast was between 7 and 7:30. Luggage had to be on its way out. And the whole relaxation piece of it was not really there.
I love it. So the expectation was this is going to be a relaxing vacation.
Well, I mean, I knew it would be hard, but then at the end of each day, I thought we would get to relax, and we didn't really much.
Yeah, the episode that I did with Cassandra and David, I think it was called something like celebrating each day on an adventure, and I mean, they had an amazing experience, and I think they talked about like coming back to these wonderful hotels and having these nice meals, and we hear that, and I think to a large extent there was that, but yeah, it was hard. Maria W.
Yeah, similar experience. From the beginning, I knew this was going to be a huge challenge. My word for the year this year is strong, and turned 50 this year. Whoop, whoop. And 25th wedding anniversary this year. Whoop, whoop. So I needed something big and exciting and challenging that I wanted to do to push myself to get stronger this year. And so I knew in my mind that it was going to be difficult, but I think like Maria, I thought it would be mixed with luxury at night when you go online and you look at these pictures of these hotels that we were staying in. And I guess that's a good way to segue and say we did not camp on this trip, which could have been an option, but we did not do that.
Oh, no.
But the hotels had pools and hot tubs, and it was like, I can't wait, right? And then by the time we roll in and we're thinking, oh my God, we have 10 minutes before we have to get to dinner. And then I'm so tired. All I can do is lay here in my bed. So I was not expecting it to be that challenging, but I am on the flip side that much prouder of all of us because it was so challenging.
Yeah. So staying with you, when this adventure was proposed to you as, for us, a way to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary, like, what did you think about that, and why did you say yes?
I think I was inspired listening to Cassandra and David's podcast episode and had that in my mind from months before. And then when you mentioned this, I just kind of got giddy about it, and the Alps and just being there and thinking about the sound of music and all the wildflowers. And I'm not a big city person by heart. I just love the countryside and just being out there to frolic around in the flowers. And we were so silly. But there are many moments that I knew we were just going to have a blast running around and just playing in the meadows and the fields of flowers and everything. So I think that's the fairy tale image I had in my head that I said yes to.
Yeah. I love it. Maria Martino, how about you? Why did you say yes to this adventure?
So Paul turned 60 this year, and we needed to do something big for that. And he presented it to me, and I thought, oh gosh, no, I don't think I want to do that. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, you know what? We never have the opportunity to do stuff like this. This is like a once in a lifetime kind of trip, and it was something he wanted to do, and I wanted to challenge myself, and I don't regret a single minute. As hard as it was so rewarding at the end to know that we accomplished this huge feat.
Yeah, totally.
Hey,
So-
Scott, can I interject something?
Let's go.
Because I want to go back a year ago, because I didn't even realize the short time frame that occurred to make this trip happen until the morning we were leaving, when we were having coffee at your house, and I was looking at the email exchange. So you sent an email to me, because I was with all of your prior guests, on September 29th. And it said, you and Maria are celebrating your 50th birthdays and your 25th anniversary, and you're doing this trip on TMB. And you have sent me a lot of these adventures, and I've been like, that sounds awesome, but I can't make it happen. But when you sent this one, it like smacked me in the face. It was like, oh my gosh, this is something I can do with my wife. And that was on September 29th. And I was looking at emails. I didn't share that to Maria until October 2nd. And then on the email I sent to her, I don't even remember this. I said, I know this is a quick no, but wouldn't this be, can I say fucking amazing?
Let's go.
And so I told her, like, I know this is an automatic quick no, but wouldn't this be fucking amazing? That was on October 2nd. And October 3rd, I respond to you and say, you know what? I think we're interested. And what blew my mind is by October 16th, this trip was booked. And I did not realize that it happened like that. So yeah, I mean, we talk about a bucket list, and I'm not going to say this was ever on my bucket list because I didn't ever think it was within reach. But once you mentioned it, I'm like, boom, it's now on the bucket. It's on the bucket list. And I want to do this. And I told Maria, and we talked about it for a couple of days. And I'm like, and she's like, we're not really going to do it. I'm like, I think we're going to do this. So it's so funny that it was never on the bucket list. And as soon as you mentioned it, it was like, that is what we're going to do. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is the perfect trip.
Oh, totally.
Well, thank you for reaching out and including us.
Oh my gosh. Epic, just epic. So much more to talk about. Okay. So, Maria W, and then I'm going to come back to Maria M. I'm going to ask you the same question, but Paul went through what is the TMB, right? He went through the mileage and where it this countries that it goes through and what you see, and you go around Mont Blanc, and so he kind of did the overview of what it is. But I want to ask you, like, what is it really? Like when you get down to it, like what's involved? Talk us through the day to day.
Absolutely. So day one, you figure out how, for us, getting all of our stuff out of our airport luggage into these duffel bags so that we could transport or have these duffel bags transported for us. So day one, you get all your stuff for the trek into your duffel bag. You put it out at the hotel in the lobby, and they come and magically just pick it up and take it to your next destination, your next hotel.
Sometimes.
Then you have to look at the maps and all the stuff that we have, sort of, right? Sort of. You're right, Paul. There's a story in there. We'll come back to that. Then you have to look at the maps, and we were self-guided. So we had help, but you and Paul were the main guides out there, and Maria and I were the helpers, I guess we could say. And we had to look and say, which route do we want to take? How long is it going to take us to get there? How many miles? What's the ascent, the descent? Right? Where are we going to stop? Is there something along the way we can have lunch? Are we going to have to get a picnic? Right? And then plan out the day. And that was our job for the day. So we just had to get from point A to point B, come into the hotel at the end. Sometimes we had transfers or taxis or different things that could help us with stretches that didn't make sense. But for the most part, and I remember on day one, we walked, and wow, did we walk, and we got into town, and it was this huge descent. And I remember my knee was killing me, and I thought, wow, it's day one. This is going to be interesting. But that's it in a nutshell. And then, you have dinner and you relax and you hang out and have fun. And then you get up the next day and do it all over again.
So I want to stay with you for a minute. So it sounds easy. You just have to get from point A to point B. Like, what's it take to get from point A to point B?
Woo! A lot of energy to get from point A to point B. And it takes 10 miles, right, ish, each day. So you start out about, like Maria said, down to breakfast 7:30, and then out the door 8:00, on the trail probably about 8:30. And then we didn't get back until I think it was dinner time most days. So you're out there hiking all day, and you do have breaks. You do stop and you might grab a cup of coffee at a refuge, or you might have lunch out on the trail or at a restaurant or whatever. So it's not nonstop hiking, but it's woo. You sit down and you think, do I need to get up again already? Is it time? So yeah, I would say, each day, and then we had one rest day in the middle. So it was mostly just hiking from morning until dinner time.
Yeah. And Maria M., what would you add to that in terms of just what does it take to get from point A to point B?
I will say in the beginning, there was so many factors, like I got to fill up my water, and I got to make sure I have lunch, and I got to make sure everything I need for the day is in my bag. And then I got to make sure I repack my bag that's being transported. And I will say by the end, we kind of had all that down to a science.
Yeah.
Like we kind of knew, okay, like the night before I knew what I needed for the next day, and then everything was in my bag. And we kind of perfected that by the end. So you did kind of get into a routine of what you needed to accomplish every day. And of course, the food was the most important. Making sure we had lunch and snacks, lots of snacks.
Yeah.
And chocolate.
Yeah.
And chocolate.
A lot of chocolate, lots of coffee. It was
Lots of
I was
chocolate.
just telling someone yesterday how much chocolate we ate on this trip.
It was a lot.
But we digress. Go on.
We did. Hey, it's good energy on the trail. So guys, I'm gonna, we kind of talked a little bit in advance, and we would think we want to get into like some of the things that for me, when I go on an adventure trip, like what helped me think about a trip in terms of like whether it was a successful trip or not. And I'm going to come to that. But before we do, I just kind of want to do like touching on this sort of day to day, the trip itself, like the actual hiking. Like, could you just hit on like one or two highlights each of the things you saw on the trail, or like just part of the experience in terms of like the trail itself that sort of stuck out to you as a highlight, whether it was something natural or nature or just, a highlight for you. Maria Martino, let's go to you first.
Okay. I will say the beauty of the landscape.
Yeah.
Like every day I couldn't get over the fact that we still see this mountain. Everywhere we go, we see Mont Blanc, and it is gorgeous. And we took tons of pictures. The pictures almost look like a green screen. Like we were just standing there and someone put that background behind us. Like the pictures don't do it justice. It was the most beautiful scenery. Like that was definitely the highlight for me.
Yeah.
Was how gorgeous it was.
Yeah. And I'm going to jump in and just say my piece before Paul and Maria go, because I agree with you 100%. Like honestly, listening to you talk, like almost makes me emotional. Like it was so emotionally beautiful. Like, it really felt like a fairy tale to me, from the snow-capped mountains to the wildflowers to just like looking down from up high down into these valleys. It was just so overwhelmingly beautiful. And I think like I find myself trying to compare it to other places that I've been, and you just can't. It's just, it stands in a category of its own. The beauty is just unbelievable. Paul, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty is incredible, but you hit on a key word there, emotion. Mm-hmm. And this trip brought out so many emotions.
That's true.
And let's get right to the point. There were lots of tears. There was lots of laughter, but there was lots of tears. But there were tears for so many amazing reasons. There were tears because it was hard. There was tears of fear. There was tears of joy. There was tears of exhilaration. And just being there, I mean, like you said, just thinking about what we saw just brings so much emotion. It brings you to tears. And I know one of your goals on your trip is to have laughter and to have tears.
Yep.
And we had tons of it. We had backpacks full of it. Backpacks we couldn't carry. We had so many tears and laughter.
We did. We're going to come back to that. So Maria, how about you?
The sounds on the Alps is something that we haven't talked about, and
Yes.
that it was just really fun. So there's cows with huge cowbells on, right? And you're walking along the trail, and all of a sudden you just hear this music off in the distance, and it's just all the different cows along the hillsides, and it's just all these cowbells just going off, and oh my gosh, it just is so much fun. And there were actually quite a few moments, maybe a little fear and then a little bit of awe, right? We had to walk next to the cows, and we saw people turn around on the trail. Oh no, we'll go the other way. And I'm thinking, oh no, we're walking through, right? This is going to be
Not just cows, but bulls.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to navigate across these hillsides with them. And, another one was the sheep. And there was a day that we were actually driving, and we saw, we heard just a million sheep right out next to us. And we just had to sit there in the car and wait for them all to cross, right? I don't remember some of the other sounds that we heard. Another one that brought me to tears, this is completely different, but there were chapels that were along the trails many times. And we just got into the habit where we would just go in and stop and sit for a moment. And one of the chapels that we stopped in was very quiet. And then I felt like there was nobody even in there. And then out of the blue, here comes this beautiful music. And it just brought me to tears, just sitting there and thinking about, wow, I have this really hard thing to do today. And I don't even know where that music came from, but wow, that just felt like it came from me, right? And it gave me the inspiration and the courage to continue forward that moment, because I was already nervous for the day ahead when I realized, I think it was on day 2 when I realized how hard this was going to be. And that took me a little while to get over, and mixed in with my fear of heights. It was like, wow, okay, we got this. took a little bit of courage there.
You just brought me. I'm ready to go back, you guys. That's just brought me right. I remember that day.
I'm glad you mentioned the chapels, but not only the chapels were so special, because usually they were near the beginning of a hike, which really brought us peace and really focused us. But along the way, like all these mountaintops had the crosses, and it was just, it made me think of special people in my life that are no longer here. So it was really emotional experiences every time, it was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah. There was reverence all the way through that whole trail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So we've kind of touched on some of this a little bit, but, I've had the opportunity to go on several group trips at this point and climb some very cool trails. And this one just, being right at the top, like just such an epic adventure. But there's something that I've come to recognize as sort of like 4 things that I use to decide like whether a trip was successful or not. And those 4 things include, number 1, that we all come back safe. Number 2, that we are successful in whatever goal we set out to achieve. Number 3, we laugh. And number 4, we cry. And I want to spend some time talking about each one of those. And so we're going to go around and touch on each one of them. So let's start, Paul, with you. Let's talk about safety. So your thoughts on this particular trip. And obviously we're all here on this podcast right now, so we're all good. We're all okay. We came back safe. But talk to us a little bit about safety on the trip.
All right. So I know you asked the 2 Marias about what they thought this trip would be leading up to it. And I watched a lot of YouTube videos of other people's documentation of this trip. And they would film themselves. And there were a lot of times it was walking on this nice open pasture or a pretty bridge or through a nice little village, because that's when they could do the filming. Mm-hmm. What I did not expect was, and I mean, it was all good, but it was harder and more technical than I even thought it would be. I mean, it was very difficult and it was technical. And there were some balcony trails, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, that were like on the edge of cliffs. So safety, yeah, we made it. And we did fine, but there were times when I am not so sure-footed. Maria already mentioned, I'm 60 years old. I'm pretty old. So there were times when I wasn't so sure of my footing. And so there was some nervousness. And I'll talk about this later about day one, but it came at you right away. And it was like, wow, okay, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Maria Martino, talk to us about your feelings about safety on the trip.
Kind of like what Paul said, it was more technical than I thought it would be. And there were moments where I had to just stay focused on what was in front of me and not look to the left or the right because it terrified me. And one day towards the end of the trip, we did one ladder, and the ladder was fine. But when we got on the other side of the ladder, we still had to walk. We had to scale up this rock face with 2x4s. And that was terrifying to me. And when we finally got to the top, I was still on all fours. And Paul said, Maria, you can stand up now. I'm like, oh, okay. But there were very terrifying moments that I really didn't anticipate. In my head, I kind of thought, oh, parts of it might be a little hard, but not that I would be afraid. And there were moments that I was definitely afraid.
Yeah. And as you think about, as you kind of think back on some of those, do you have any reflections now that we're back and we're safe and we're at home? Do you have any sort of thoughts on what that experience meant to you? Any sort of transformations that came out of some of those difficult and fearful situations?
I mean, it proved to me that I can do it. Faced with adversity, I can power through and do it, because what's your option?
Yeah.
Your option is to crawl into a ball and ask for the helicopter rescue. And I wasn't doing that. So I just tried to get out of my head and just keep on moving forward.
Yeah. Maria W., you and me had an encounter with a helicopter.
Yeah, that same trail with the ladder. Oh my goodness. We barely made it up the ladder, and then we climbed up those 2x4s that she's talking about. And you and me happened to be up front. And I think I was ahead at that moment. And we look up and we see the helicopter getting ready to land, or I think it had just landed actually. And we thought, okay, I think it's safe to go. And no sooner did I start moving, that helicopter took off, and I've never felt wind like that. And so I'm literally on the side of the cliff, and thankfully my instincts, I just got down on all fours and up against the rock, and it just went, and I was fine. But man, in the moment, woo, I can still flash back to that one pretty easily.
Well, we were getting pelted. You were getting pelted by sand and dirt. Yes. And I yelled to Maria, I said, stay down.
Yeah. For listeners, the helicopter, just to be clear, was not for us. It was, we're still not sure whether they were dropping off supplies or doing a rescue or whatever, but it was very, very close to us. It landed and then very quickly took off again, but that was fun. So Maria W., coming back to you on the same question about just feelings of safety on the trail.
I felt safe. I knew I was going to be afraid because I'm always dealing with this fear of heights that I have and always facing it. And I've learned to expect that on these trips. And even at 50, it's still challenging. But I felt safe. I felt like there were times on the trail, like Paul, where it was so small and we were up so high, and I just had to take a moment and just let everybody go by me. And there were definitely tears, but I just kind of practiced and said, okay, I'm just going to take my time and I'm going to get through this. And I did. Like Maria is saying, what's the other option, right? We don't want to go back, so we're going forward. But yeah, it was definitely compartmentalized thinking. I had to just stare at that little ledge and nothing down below. And you all kept saying, oh, look at the view. I'm sure I didn't give a very nice look. But I moved it across. So that's all that mattered.
That's awesome. Okay, let's talk about achieving our goal. And so obviously, we talked about what Tour du Mont Blanc is, 100 miles around the Mont Blanc Massif. We did it. Congratulations. We did it. So excited. I mean, and we can talk about some of the celebrations that we had when we finally finished and got back to Chamonix. lots of tears and laughter at that point in the trip, that day alone. But we also each kind of talked a little bit about like something that we were hoping to get out of the trip, or maybe like an intention that we had for the trip. And I wondered if each one of us could talk about that, and if whether you felt like you were successful in that goal. So Maria W., let's start with you.
Well, as I said earlier, one of my intentions is to get strong this year. And I have to say, like looking back, and Paul, you can help me out with this. You looked at your watch the very last day and you said, I think it was 100.86 miles, right?
Yeah, we were basically 101 miles,
Mm-hmm.
31,000 feet of elevation, and 71 hours on the trail.
Yeah.
And when I think about that, I feel strong. So, yes, I feel like I accomplished that. The other half of my goal was to relax like Maria. And I feel like it was day 2 or day 3, I'm not sure which, when I finally just said, okay, this has gone from vacation mode to this is a quest. I am going to get around this mountain if it's the last thing I do. And once I shifted into that mode, then everything fell into place. And then I started to have fun and relax, and just, my nerves sort of settled. So I think there needed to be a mind shift in there for me, but I did accomplish that.
Yeah. Can we stay with that for a minute? Can you talk a little bit about that mind shift?
Well, I think it was pretty obvious in the beginning, in the first couple of days, that I was struggling. And it was a lot harder. I think we had practiced 2 days of hiking in a row just to make sure we could do that. But then when you add that to the strong ascent and descent, and realizing how it's so much harder than Crowder's Mountain, which we have around here, and it's just so much more involved, it threw me for a loop. And it made me think, oh my goodness, I don't even know if I can do this. And then it's like I pulled myself out of vacation mode to really reflect on this and say, like, okay, this is not just a trip. I mean, yes, that's part of it, but this is something that I really want to do. And I need to change my mind here. I need to shift into courage and strength and, execution. And once I did that, then something melted away in me, I guess you could say. And I realized, okay, I've got this. We can have fun with it. That, it's not just me that's struggling. I think it was helpful when I looked and saw, had conversations with you all and realized it was harder for you too. And so I think there was a bonding over that. And I think that helped me let go of the other piece.
Scott, can I just interject on something?
Yeah.
Because she's talking about day 2, we got hit in the face with a frying pan. Okay. Day 2 was hard. So I want to go back. Day 1, we had this long descent, and Maria W. already touched on her knee was in pain. And, we were all questioning, oh my gosh, this is day 1 and her knee's in pain. And we did a lot of things to help her knee. And then day 2 was the hardest friggin' day of the whole trip.
Yeah.
And you know what is so friggin' awesome? Day 3, Maria W. was back out there, and we're doing this. So It's like day 1 is all pain. Day 2, we get hit in the head with a frying pan. And day 3, what are you going to do? Go hike. And we did it. So she was inspiring to me to watch. And we'll get into this. But both of the Marias, this gave me so much friggin' energy watching them conquer this.
Oh man, I love it. The passion's coming back. Maria Martino, talk to us about your goal for this trip.
So I wanted to do hard things, and I feel like I accomplished that tenfold. And the other piece of that, in all of the years I've worked, short of having my children, I've never taken more than a week off from work at a time. And I was off work for 2.5 weeks. And I was honestly able to completely disconnect from that life, to really fully embrace what we were doing and not think about the laundry and the patients. I'm a home care physical therapist, and all of the things I have to do day to day to get life done. And it was really refreshing to just not have to deal with all of that stuff. So I feel like that was almost a better takeaway than the than the doing hard things.
Yeah, I think that's worth like just staying with for a second, if you're okay with that. Like,
Sure.
Being on a trail and, being very high up and fear of heights and all these things, like the physical struggle, that's just kind of one of the things I think that like really people really want to hear. Right. But at the same time, like this idea of taking 2.5 weeks off when the most you've ever taken is a week off, like that, a lot of people struggle with that. So I'm just curious, like, what was that like? Like, how did you deal with that? How did you get over that?
Actually, after the first couple of days, it wasn't that hard. And I didn't have like an international phone plan when we went. So the only time I could be on my phone was when we were in the hotel. So that was refreshing in and of itself too, because, I didn't feel like I had to check social media. I didn't have to check emails. I didn't have to do anything except be present in the moment. And I feel like sometimes in life, you're not present in the moment because you're always thinking about the next thing you have to do, that you can't enjoy the moment that you're in. And I feel like I was able to do that every day for almost, for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
So is there a takeaway in that you'll carry forward with you?
Well, I need to realize what's important and not get stuck in the minutia of the day to day.
Yeah. It's awesome. Okay, Paul Martino, how about you? What was your goal?
Well, my goal was, you could simply put letting go, but it was like, so as you indicated, I run a lot and I spend a lot of time looking at my watch, my stopwatch, and everything is like, obviously now from 20 years ago, I run, 2 minutes a mile slower, but everything is based on what pace I'm doing right now. And even when we spend 4 months preparing for this trip, hiking every Sunday, and even on those preparations, I would look at my watch. I'm like, we're hiking 25 minutes a mile. We could hike a little faster. And I wanted to be able to put that down, get that away, and just be in the moment. And I'll tell you, and I don't want it to come across the wrong way, but it was really easy because once we started, that wasn't the mission at all. It had nothing to do with time. The mission was the four of us. And I just wanted to be present to help everyone and help myself and get, cover the distance and obviously the Marias had a harder time. So that was all I was cared about. I never really cared about the watch unless we had to meet a taxi at 5:00 or catch a lift to get down into Chamonix at a certain time. That was the only time that time mattered. The other points, time never mattered. And it was just about us helping each other, getting through the day and accomplishing an amazing goal. So as far as my goal leading in, it turned out to be quite easy because it was a new goal once I started.
So Paul, like, the kind of the blanket term that you used was letting go, but do you think that what happened on the TMB in terms of your being able to let go, is that something you feel like you've been able to bring forward, or will you be able to bring forward?
Well, I don't know. When I get back to my runs, it's all about time again. But it was a really cool experience.
Yeah.
And to just, I keep going back to it, but watching these two women just crush these mountains was so friggin' awesome.
It really was. It was. And we're going to get into some of that emotion with the last two. I'll add mine. For me, one of the things, and we worked with, for listeners, we worked with a company called Cloud9 Adventures, and they were amazing. They put together an incredible package of pre-planned logistics for us. So all we had to do was show up and sort of follow what they laid out for us. And that included different GPS tracks, which showed us which ways to go each day. And we had somebody that kind of gave us suggestions on what she thought. But what was so cool about this, and kind of ties back to what my goal was that we didn't have a guide with us. We didn't have a company paid guide with us. We were on our own, and we had all their directions, and we felt very, very supported, but we made our own way. and we were able to kind of follow our own schedule and do things our way. We weren't being led, we were guiding ourselves. And for me, all of the multi-day treks that I've ever done has always been with a guide, and there's huge value in that, and I highly recommend that. But for me on this one, I wanted to kind of challenge myself in being able to see whether we could, guide ourselves and make it through this on our own. And I think we nailed that one. I'm super excited about how that went. And it certainly gave me a renewed confidence in, going to a foreign country and tackling a new trail and not feeling like I always have to have somebody there, like telling me what to do. Because the reality is, there's so many people on this trail and all these refugios that we stopped at along the way. And Paul, you already talked about all the people that we met along the way. I mean, we were never, ever in a situation where there wasn't somebody nearby that we could ask for help if we needed it. And often we were the ones that people would ask for help when they needed it. And so that it's kind of this mutual thing, like, everybody's there to help each other. Everybody's got a common goal. And I'm super excited about how that all turned out. So let's go to the third one, laughter. That's one of the things that makes a trip successful for me. We definitely had some laughter on this trip.
Especially crossing borders.
We had some fun crossing borders. So Paul, we're going to come to you last. Maria Martino, talk to us about some of the laughs.
Oh my gosh. I mean, all of it was fun. I mean, my name is Maria, so there was a whole like Sound of Music theme. So there was lots of Maria songs, and early on in the trip, I spun around in a circle and sang The Hills Are Alive with the Sound of Music because my coworkers said that I had to do that. So I did and sent them the video. And it was just, as hard as the trip was, we had so much fun. We had a flash mob on the side of the mountain with random people we didn't know. Birthday songs in Polish. It was just, it was super, super fun.
It so was. Maria W., what were some of your funny moments that you remember?
Oh my goodness, there's so many of them. Just even from the very first moment when the lady from Cloud9 said, "Oh yes, you can get a picnic lunch. You could get ham and cheese. You could get cheese and ham. You can get cheese." Anything you want, right? And then we go to all these places and we ask for our picnic lunches, and really everybody says it the same way. "Oh, you can have anything you want. Ham and cheese. We have cheese and ham. We have cheese." There's just the culture just really cracked me up. And, just moments on the trail where we were just being goofy and running along in the flowers and just having a blast. And sometimes I feel like it was the humor that needed to carry us through on a really tough day, right? And what was fun is we'd all be at different moments in our moods, right? And so when one person might be struggling, another person was feeling strong and just started cracking jokes to lift everybody up. And that just kept changing throughout the week and throughout the group. And that was really amazing and so needed in order to stay focused and actually get the hike done. But yeah, the cultural stuff was it was hysterical. And then the border crossings, like you said, just making all these goofy videos and going from one country to another. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Paul, I'm going to give you the last word on this one. I just want to add before we do, I feel like our inner children came out big time on this trip. We had so much fun. We were just goofy and silly and singing and telling stupid jokes and just dancing around. And, we found out that Paul was the best male dancer in 8th grade.
Yes. He got applause on the trail.
We did. We had, and I don't know if he was gonna share this or not, but we were one afternoon just sitting on this amazingly lovely hillside, and I think we were in Switzerland. And
Italy. It was Italy.
And he did share that he won the award for best dance moves in 8th grade. And so male dancer, and he starts showing us his moves and dancing it up. And then when he's all done, all of a sudden we're all looking towards the mountains. And when he's finished, all of a sudden we hear this huge round of applause and we turn around and realize he's got a huge audience that's behind us watching the whole thing. It was amazing. So Paul, finish us out here on the laughter. Tell us about some of the laughs.
All right. I don't want to ruin the surprise, but when they do make a movie, it's going to be a comedy. This movie will be a comedy, maybe a dramedy. There was a little drama in there, but mostly the comedy part. But Maria W. reminded me of the first day when we heard about the sandwiches. And she was teaching our guide that first day was teaching us proper etiquette. And she was like, just say bonjour. and she's like, I'm like, how do you say bonjour? She's like, you can't say it too high. So I went, bonjour. She's like, too high. But that was just the start of it. And then, going from France, bonjour, we cross into Italy, then it's buongiorno. I mean, just silly stuff. You had to be there, kind of funny stuff. But so many funny things. That's about all I can add right now.
We laughed. There was an ample amount of laughter on this trip. Let's move into the tears, because we had a lot of that too. And whether they were tears of joy or tears of, concern, it was the whole gamut. So Paul, let's start with you on tears.
All right. I want to talk about day 2, which was when we got hit in the face with a frying pan. I want to talk about that day. It was a very long day. It was the first or second hardest day of the trip, probably the hardest day. We climbed 2 cols, but from mile 2 to mile 9, 7-mile stretch, we climbed 4,500 feet. So we are basically climbing for 4 hours. We are just climbing, okay? And it took a toll on all of us. And I was with my Maria, and there was a point where she was just having an emotional moment, and you did not even know. You were like maybe 50 yards ahead, and you took this picture of us thinking that we were hugging. But at that point, I put my arm around her, and I was just telling her that I was so friggin' proud of her, because this day was hard, okay? And we're still probably a half hour, maybe a little less than a half hour from the top. But we've been climbing. We've been hiking for over 5 hours. We've been climbing for 4 hours. And I put my arm around her, and I said, you are so friggin' amazing. I am so proud of you. You can do this. And it was just a magical moment. So later on, we get to the top, and you didn't even know that moment was happening. And when we shared what was happening, I think we all cried together, because it was such a magical moment. It was a hard friggin' day, and we all did it together. So that was something to be super proud of.
So I remember that so distinctly, and I have to add to that moment, because from my perspective, I was a little bit higher than you guys. I was kind of closer up to the call there, and I had turned around, and I just was kind of blown away by the picture I was seeing, because I saw the 2 of you guys coming up the trail, and you were real close together. I don't know if you were embracing but you were real close together. And I took a portrait mode picture. And I think it's still to this day my favorite picture from the whole trip. But I remember when I was so excited to show this picture to you guys, because it was like you guys just this tiny little like little ants on the trail with this just amazingly gorgeous landscape behind you. And so you came up, and I immediately came over to show you this picture. And Maria Martino, I remember you looking at it, and you were like, Scott, that was a low moment. And I was just like, I don't know, I just it made me so emotional, because to look at this and realize that you were having this low moment on the trail, but behind you is just this absolutely gorgeous vastness. It was just that moment was one of my favorite moments.
And also that picture, the vastness also has this tiny little trail that just goes on forever. And I remember sharing that and saying, mean, that's where we came from, way down there. And we hiked this entire trail.
Yeah.
And you also captured a video of us when we finally hit the col and we walked to it and we touched that pole together.
Yep.
And I just hugged her, embraced her, because it was like a hard friggin' day. And here she's crying again.
It's going to make me cry again. Oh.
Yay. Successful podcast episode. We got tears on the podcast. All right.
And laughter.
Oh.
You know, that same, it was all in that same few hours. I mean, that same call. That was, you know, you said that was the hardest play. Maria W., you had a really hard time getting up that hill too, but there was actually like a transformation that you had on that hill, because at one point you just kind of like, you flipped a switch and you just started cranking up that hill, and you ended up being the first one up that day.
I did. And I have to say thank you to both of you, because you were holding my backpack. I don't know if you remember, but I was struggling so much that I could not keep going up that hill with this big pack, and the water is just so heavy carrying it. And so I thank you both for taking turns. And I was lighter, obviously, after the backpack was off of me, but I felt like 100 times lighter after it was off. And I think we passed this stream along the way, and I had my hat, my bucket hat, and I just took it off my head. And I think you said, go dunk your hat in the meadow. And so I did. I dunked it in the water, and it came back and put it on my head, and just the cold water, just, it was completely refreshing. I didn't have my backpack on, and I was like, I remember just staring up off into the distance at the top of that col. And I was like, this is it. I don't care. I'm going now. And I just started walking, and I didn't stop until I got to the top. And it was just, I don't know. I finally got into this zone where I was like, I can do this, you know, and I started turning around, looking behind me. Okay. Yeah, they're coming. They're behind me. But then I just kept going until I got to the very top. And when I sat down at the top and just looked out, and then at that point you can see over the mountain, right? And you have this big, gorgeous view. And I don't even remember if that's where the lake was off in the distance. I feel like it was, but spectacular view sitting up there on the ground, super proud of myself, time to eat chocolate, right? And then here you all come.
Always.
And then we're also proud of each other that we all made it up to the top together. And I just cannot thank you enough for taking my backpack, because that was a huge moment for me.
Well, that was teamwork. You know, you were having a hard time, and there was a lot of things. You know, the day before it was knee pain, and then we started, and I think you were a little nervous, and then we're starting to go uphill, and it's like, well, let's just make it easier.
Yeah.
Let's unweight her. And then you took off, and it was like, you go, girl.
So guys, it was a hugely successful trip. We were safe. We all hit our goals. We had tears. We had laughter. There's so much more. I mean, there's so many more stories we could tell on all of these things. I think just a couple more things for listeners, because one of the things we didn't really get a chance to dive into is that I think one of the cool things about this trip is you get this adventure, but the hotels were very nice. The food was amazing. The people were great. Maria Martino, could you just talk a little bit about some of the food and the culture that we got to experience?
Oh my gosh. There was so much. So we spent 3 nights in Courmayeur, Italy, in this really cute kind of boutique hotel that was owned by a family, Andreas, Patricio, and their son, Simon. And they were amazing. And Paul and I decided we should do some laundry while we were there. And I went up to the desk and I said, well, how do we get, change for the laundry? And she said, one momento. And she goes back and she pulls out her purse and she dumps some change on the counter. And then she gets another purse and dumps some change on the counter and then gets a wallet. And so she emptied all of her purses to get us enough change for us to exchange so we could do our laundry. The breakfast, her husband made all the pastries at the breakfast at that hotel. They had a great patio outside and they brought us wine and snacks. It was just the personal touches in every little town we were in just made, that resting piece so lovely. Like we just felt like we were their only customers every night that we were there. So that was probably the highlight of all the places I stayed. But honestly, I don't think we had a bad meal. Every place we ate was amazing.
Maybe one.
Well, yeah, maybe one. I did have a little GI issue. No, but we won't dwell on that because I was able to persevere through that.
You did.
And hike the next day. So
You're a
You
champ.
did. Yeah, the hospitality was just out of this world. We did some adventurous eating. We did try escargot in France,
we did.
the traditional. Anybody have anything else they want to add in terms of the food and the culture?
I do have to mention one of my favorite experiences was the restaurant in Italy with Feliciano, my buddy. I mean, how often do you have this amazing meal and the manager of the restaurant, by the end of the night, he and I are dancing in the street together. I mean,
No joke. This is true.
It's unbelievable. It was such, like, everyone was so incredible nice. It's memories that just we'll never forget. And yeah, incredible.
Yeah. Guys, I want to touch a little bit on training. We've talked about it a little bit. But specifically, Paul, I want to ask you because you're a marathoner. So we did a podcast together. You did 50 marathons in all 50 states. But what people might not know is you're over 100 marathons total now. I mean, you're in shape. You're used to long distance mileage. How does that translate to going and doing the TMB?
I mean, it definitely helped. I mean, I have the endurance. Like I said, I'm not sure-footed, but when we were hiking up on a very stable path, I could go forever. I mean, I felt comfortable, but it was more of the stuff when we were on the edge of cliffs, with a slanted trail with some wet moisture and some scree and, a drop, that makes me a little nervous. But as far as, hiking up, that was the easy part. It was the loose footing part was the part that was tricky for me.
Yeah. And Maria W., you talked about how like strength was one of your big goals for this whole trip. So obviously like training plays a part in that. Like, can you talk a little bit about the training?
Yeah, we went to a local mountain. I guess you can call it a mountain. How tall is Crowder's Mountain? It's not that tall.
I think it's about 800 or 900 feet.
Okay.
In elevation gain.
We used that for our training ground and we went there every Sunday. I think we figured out, I want to say we went 8 or 9 Sundays in a row. And we also hiked 2 times, one Saturday, Sunday weekend. So I think that's it. And, I feel like the training was helpful. I was doing Taekwondo. That was helpful. Then I got a little bit of a hamstring injury. So I stopped on that and really just more focused on going to the gym and strength training with Rich O'Neill. And that and some yoga are really what carried me through. That's what I focused on.
Yeah. And I guess really quickly for both Marias is how well prepared do you feel like you were? And I guess, would you do anything differently from a training standpoint?
I mean, I don't think I would do anything different. I mean, we work, so it's not like we could hike 3 or 4 days in a row to assimilate that. I mean, I think I was as prepared as you could be. I mean, like Maria said, we didn't do all of our training hikes, the 4 of us together, but Paul and I, we hiked at least 10 miles, 8 or 9 Sundays in a row. And then I still ran and did strength training and all of that. I have to say I was probably in the best physical shape I've ever been in my life when we started the trip, and definitely in the best physical shape when we ended the trip. Yeah. So I don't know that I could have done anything different.
Yeah, that's great. Maria W.
I agree with that. I think looking back on it, I think there's just a time period you have to go through to get your trail legs, if we want to call it that. And I think day 1 and day 2 were the hardest for me because I didn't have that yet. And then once day 3 kicked in, I felt like, okay, I can see my body is able to get up every morning and go back out and continue hiking. And then I just got stronger. So by the time we finished the trip, it really, we were glad to be done. But at the same time, we all looked at each other and said, if we had to go out and hike 10 miles tomorrow, could we? And I think we all agreed we could.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So, Paul, just come back to you. You made a comment towards the end of the trip or around the time of the end of the trip that this was the greatest adventure of our lifetime. And I just wonder if you could kind of touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've done lots of hard things, but this, for me and Maria to do this together, I mean, this was an epic trip. I think I've used that word quite a bit. But to hike over 100 miles and climb 31,000 feet and hike through 3 different countries in the friggin' Alps. I mean, you're hiking every day. This is like almost 2 weeks of hiking. I mean, I've been on a lot of adventurous trips and I've done a lot of hard things, but for us as a couple to do this together, this was an amazing trip. And yes, it was the adventure of our lifetime. And I don't know if we'll ever be able to top it. I mean, we've hiked through Alaska and the Colorado Rockies and done Hawaii, but we've never done anything this long and extensive day after day in such an epic terrain. I mean, the friggin' Alps. It was unbelievable. And I am so glad to share this with Maria and both of you guys. It was incredible.
It was so much. I mean, we were friends before this trip, but now we're like, I mean, we're family. I mean, it's
I said that to Anita. I said, you know, we were acquaintances and then we became friends, and now, like it or not, we're family.
Yeah. It's amazing. So for the Marias, I want to ask each of you guys, if people are listening and they're like, okay, that sounds interesting, or just anybody that's kind of considering doing the Tour du Mont Blanc, what's a piece of advice that you would have for them? Let's go Maria W. first.
I would tell them to be open-minded, to say yes, and to go for it. I really feel like it's on one hand, it's a vacation because you're going somewhere new and you do have the chance to relax at night and to eat great food and have wine and do all these things. In that sense, you get a part of vacation, but it is a quest. And I think that cannot be understated. Like you really need to get your head around the fact that you're going to get up every day and hike another 10 plus miles. And it's not just 10 miles on a greenway. It's 10 miles up and down, you know, and all day long. And I think you just need to prepare for that as the best you can.
Yeah. Maria Martino.
Yeah. So I agree with everything Maria said. And you can't go into this unprepared. You can't be a person that sits on the couch every day and watches TV and doesn't exercise, because you just won't be able to do it. It is physically demanding. Yeah. But if you put the time in and the training, you have to say yes. It was amazing. One of the most amazing things I've ever done.
Yeah.
Scott, you know, every night I did make a post on social media, and I had about 15 pictures, and I kind of shared highlights of the day. And it was funny to come home, because there was like 2 divides. There were people, we had good friends that said, you guys had an amazing time. But, you know, I had some of my buddies' wives who were like, that's great, but I don't ever want to do that. And then I had other friends going, oh my gosh, that is now on my bucket list. Tell me more, you know? So it's not for everyone, but it is an adventure, and it's amazing. You know, it's unbelievable that I had one friend do the same hike before us, and then the week after us, I had another friend do the same hike, and then in a few weeks, we didn't even talk about the UTMB, which is a running race around 106 miles around the same trail. I have 2 friends doing a portion of that race. They're doing the 36-mile part of it from Switzerland to Chamonix. So I have a lot of friends that are already engaged with the TMB.
Yeah. Well, okay, Paul. So you brought it up. You know, you've hiked the TMB. You're a runner. Is UTMB in your future?
It is not. The UTMB is not in my future. I hiked it. It is hard. I can't imagine. I already told you I'm not sure-footed, and I have a history of falling and tripping and injuring myself on trails. So I cannot do that. But my 2 friends that are doing the OCC, which is from a town in Switzerland I don't know how to pronounce it, Oswali or something, and it goes through Champagne and then to Chamonix, which is the OCC. That is 36 miles. So I'm not saying I will do it, but I would potentially do that part of the race, which is all part of the UTMB race week.
The shorter section. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, I don't know if I've said it on this podcast, but I've said it to everybody that I've talked to about it. And honestly, the more time that passes since we've been there, like the more like my desire to go back and just the great memories that I had on that trip just keep growing and growing and growing. I mean, I really, it felt like a fairy tale. I mean, it was really just such a magical experience, from the landscape to the emotion, to the laughter, to the people, to the food. I just can't, to be honest with you, I'm actually surprised that this hike isn't more well known, because it's such an amazing experience. And I feel like everybody should put it on their bucket list. So one of the things about being on the trail for, 6 to 8 hours a day, sometimes more, and 10 to 14 miles, is we had time, right? We had a lot of time to talk, and we sang and we told jokes, but in a lot of that time that we had, we actually talked about what our movie would look like, right? This epic experience. So this isn't just a question on a podcast. This is like, we actually had some time to kind of think through some scenes, but for listeners, we'll keep it kind of short. So Paul, you've been on the podcast before.
Yes.
And you answered the question once before, but I think the answer changes. We know it's not going to be Matthew McConaughey, even though that's who your kids think you should be.
No.
Right. And Maria W., you've been on the podcast before, and Reese Witherspoon was going to play you. And I think for me, I've said Ty Burrell from Modern Family, and I've said Jason Sudeikis, but this cast is a completely brand new cast for this movie. Because you said it's going to be a comedy, maybe a dramedy, but Maria Martino, when they do this movie about RTMB adventure, who's going to be the actor that's going to play you?
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock. Okay, Maria W.
Andy McDowell.
Andy McDowell. All right, Paul.
Vince Vaughn. This is a star-studded cast. This is like boom.
Vince Vaughn, and you gave me this one, Paul, but Steve Carell is going to play me in this one. Yeah. And Paul, bring it home. What's our movie going to be called?
The movie is many different potential names, but it could be High on Altitude.
High on Altitude, man. We were high on altitude on this trip.
Yeah, we were definitely high on something, altitude. We were silly, and it was. It's funny that such a hard, adventurous trip could be so funny, but it was.
It was hysterical. Does anybody have any closing thoughts before we wrap up here?
I just want to reiterate, the people that we met was so incredible. Like the two guys from Denmark, or the group of people from Russia who found out we were from North Carolina, and they started singing Sweet Caroline, and the party people from Polish who sang Stolta, which is happy birthday in Polish. They sang the whole song to me in singing in Polish. It was just incredible.
Yeah, it was mind blowing. Then the people, like, the time, and that's really what made this whole trip. I mean, for me, for sure, like, spending time with you guys, right? Our team, the close personal relationships that we had, but then like the random people that we met along the way, the people that we knew that we met along the way, that we didn't, like, people that we bumped into that made us recognize how small the world is, right? And then some planned meetups that we had with people that we knew in the region along the way. The people that's just kind of what made this trip so special. And, I'm grateful to the whole podcast community, because there's just so much inspiration that happens within this community that inspires all of us to continue to take adventures like this. So with that said, for those listening, I hope you've been inspired today as much as I have. I hope that this story's encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or just need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire in your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening. Maria, Paul, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
for having us.
Yay.
Awesome. Thanks. See y'all.